Welcome back to the Two Norries podcast. My name is Timmy and this is James. We just want to thank James for his story last week. It was a fantastic story and it took a lot of courage and bravery to speak about.
Thanks to everybody for their comments as well and the support.
Yeah. And this week he's going to continue that story and talk about how he got well and his journey on education. So James,
Well, Tim,
take it over.
Thanks for the lovely introduction.
You're welcome.
Another week, another podcast continues to grow. It's been great so far. I suppose towards the end of the last episode, I was speaking about how the using kind of came to a head, and that kind of rock bottom moment where, the overdoses and the interventions and stuff. So, if I can pick it up from there.
Okay.
When I got into St. Francis Farm, it's in a farm in Tullow in County Carlow, and in the years, I'd say a couple of years leading up to that, I've been sleeping on friends' couches and different places. I remember I was sleeping in garden sheds and sleeping rough as well. But I remember when I went into the St. Francis Farm, I had my own room, and it was a beautiful building on a beautiful farm. In the summer, it was June, and I remember, keying out the door, locking the door behind me, putting my clothes into a wardrobe, bearing in mind I was living out of a black bag for so long, having a shower and just lying down on the bed, and an overwhelming sense of security that was like, for the first time in years, my basic needs were being met.
Yeah.
And I knew where I was going to be sleeping. I knew I was safe. I was going to be fed. And, it was just a very overwhelming feeling of gratitude. And I remember thinking to myself, even though I was very messed up, I'm not going back to where I just came from.
Yeah.
It's just such a desperate situation where I came from. Do you know what I mean? Suicidal ideations and overdose. So negative to be in a place now where I had my own room, and it was just like immense sense of gratitude. But a lot of work ahead of me. It was an 8-week detox, methadone and Valium. But I found it easy, to be honest with you. I was just so grateful.
Yeah.
To be I've been through treatment centers before and detoxes, cold turkey, stuff like that. I was expecting something going to be tough, but it wasn't to me. And it was, anything could have happened to me up there, but, I was just so grateful to be in there.
I actually visited that place. I visited a family member up there, and the layout of the place I thought was fantastic. It was a beautiful place as well. We went on a little tour around there with the kids and stuff, and they had some fantastic gardens and fruit and veg patches and all that. And I can understand now why you felt at home, and how much gratitude you felt from just being away from the madness of the old life and out of that environment where you could just start fresh. I understand that completely,
But in previous times where I'd be in prison and in treatment centres, I always viewed that as respite.
Yeah.
Like, there was times where prison saved me from death. Do you know what I mean? I'd be so bad, I'd go into court, the judge give me 6 months or 10 months or whatever. It's 2 months sometimes. Would just be enough time to regenerate. But it was always seen as respite to get out and use again. This time was different. This wasn't respite for me. It was like rebirth. It was like, you're going to become a different person here, James. You're going to give it your all. And, after the detox, the 8-week detox, you're going to the residential treatment, which is just, it's in the same facility, across the car park, like 16 weeks in there. Bearing in mind now to me where we're from, the facade, the
grand house.
Yeah, like you've a wall in front of you. There's no emotions being shown. You deal with any disrespect or any adversity with confrontation, And the same thing is in prison. It's the same bullshit, So like you have to kind of leave off the impression that you're a hard man and you're this and that and the other. Prison and the street is the same, and that's why I found it so easy in both areas. It was the same front. I went into the treatment centre with all them street behaviours, street attitudes, street mentality. And I tell you now, I found it so difficult because I don't know if in the treatment centres you were in, but ratting is a big thing, you know. So like if you see me slipping back into all behaviours, you'll tell my counsellor and then he can flag it with me so we don't slip. But like, to me, that's like one of the number one things you don't do up around here is ratting somebody, you know what I mean? But all that street mentality, you know, I dealing with people that I didn't really get on with in treatment, and just, you know, anger issues with frustration and conflict, all these things, like, you know, was jeopardizing my chance to stay there, because like when you're in the real world, you can't be dealing with people that you don't get on with like that, with for confrontation and anger and all this. So I had to do anger management up there, and I had to do all these things, and, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy, change my thought patterns, look at my core beliefs.
It sounds to me that you had an awful lot of awareness. You were able to grasp these things initially, you know, which is fantastic. You know, it just shows how much you wanted to get well. You know.
But I remember when I was in the residential gaff about 6 weeks, right? I didn't open my mouth now in the groups and the sessions and stuff, because I felt if I didn't say anything, he'd skip by me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Yeah. So he says to me after about 5 or 6 weeks, he says, James, he says, you're around here, he says, you're working, you're doing your thing, no trouble. You shouldn't be here at all. You've no issues. There's nothing wrong with you. What are you doing here? And it was just about not leaving myself vulnerable in front of the group. I just found it so hard. He come to me, how you doing, James? I'm grand, I'm fine. And I got away with that for about a month or 6 weeks. But eventually they got stuck on me, do you know what I mean? And it was just about leaving yourself vulnerable in front of a group. Do you know, I had a big issue with that. Like, where we're from, to me, it's not safe to do that. Like, leave yourself vulnerable in front of a group and you may forget about it, because that's weakness.
Or else you have that. You
could be used against you.
Yes, and you might be hurt even more.
Yeah.
You know.
But if you don't, like he used to say to me, leaving yourself vulnerable in front of people you know in a controlled group with therapists is a safe place to do. He says it's a risk, but it's a healthy risk. And, you know, healthy risk taking has been a fact of life since, you know what I mean? And by leaving yourself vulnerable in front of people, talking about some issues that you have going on for you, it just helped me to open up more, became more open with the counsellor, and, you know, it just really helped me. It was a very hard thing for me to do initially. Once I learned to trust people, that if I say stuff about, like, if I lose the facade, and leave myself vulnerable, I'm not going to regret it. I'm going to be accepted for who I am, and there's going to be no judgment and no shame, and it doesn't matter what I've done or who I am. I was going to be met every day by the counsellor, unconditional, positive regard. Like, they didn't care what I done; they just wanted to help me, and they didn't, you know. And a lot of shame, a lot of guilt was creeping up, a lot of hurt and sadness, anger, all this stuff. But it was a perfect environment for it to come up.
So you're in the treatment centre now, right? You're doing everything you can. You really, really want this, right? It's around this time people in your family and friends see James doing his best. He's really, really making an effort at this. It's this time now people really start getting into your life. People that kind of just knew we can't do nothing for him. Like, we have to leave him off, and he has to go through what he has to come out the other side, to hit his rock bottom. Because if we catch his hand, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And we both know that.
Yeah.
But if we leave him just try, you know, it does work. So tell us a bit about that. Did things start changing in your life with your family and everybody?
I was up there. I was in treatment about 3 months before I even made a phone call. I was so anxious about fucking it up again, to be honest with you. Like, even though I had enough and everything, I'd had enough before and I fucked it up. And I just didn't want to put him through the pain of it. I didn't want to make promises. I was sick of making promises and telling lies. So I got up there myself. I was in there myself. I was doing it myself. Do you know what I mean? I'd been distanced from the family for a long time. Like, there was times where I mightn't have contacted on my family for months. They wouldn't think nothing of it. I was written off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, my mum and father, my mother and father was waiting on a phone call from the priest or the guards or something. They were waiting on bad news all the time,
Yeah.
and a very anxious, fearful place to be for them. But once I was in treatment, I did make a phone call for a few months, as I said. There was a lot of guilt and shame as well, you know. So I became more confident then. After the 6 week, 7 week mark in the residential side of it, you know, began to believe that, you know what, maybe I can do this. And I remember in the detox, there was people, you know, sometimes people come into treatment for the wrong reasons and they bring in drugs with them. There was drugs going around and I refused them. And that was my first time refusing drugs since I could remember. There was tablets going around. I didn't want them. And that was a big moment for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But literally one day, Tim, I woke up in treatment one day and the obsession to use was gone. It's like I woke up and I knew that it was done for me. There was no more obsession. There was drugs in the building. I didn't want them. I was done with it. I began to become more mature as a man then. Began to learn about my experiences. I began to accept my inadequacies, that I don't have to try to be anything I'm not. You know, I can be soft. I can be quiet. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, like them things in prison and in where we're from can be seen as kind of not great qualities to have, because you have to be kind of tough. But I just began to get some self-acceptance, and then I began to challenge the core beliefs. You know, my counsellor my thinking was very fucked up. Like what my idea of what a man was, my idea of what we should be doing in life, or what a normal life was very fucking very negative. Apologies for the language.
Yeah.
But it was very negative. Like, you know, associating every occasion with a drink and a drug. You know, the negative attitude towards employment. You know, towards a lot of things. You know,
towards laws. You know.
Exactly. And then people in authority and all these things. But I began to learn up there that, you know what, it was all bullshit to me. Like them attitudes and that negative mindset. Where did it ever get me? It got me nothing but overdoses, prison sentences, misery, anxiety, beatings, fucking everything, lost relationships. The whole lot got me nowhere. And I just began to reject it all. And I came out of the treatment centre with a new mindset, you know, with a new, like, I remember in my counsellor, you know, I had this attitude around education and employment and stuff. And, you know, even like marriage and driving the car, I'd never thought any of that was there for me.
Yeah.
And I used to dismiss it when he used to bring it up. So I wouldn't be able to do that. Oh, that's not, that's for other. So he began, why isn't that for you? Why can't you go out and get a good job? Why can't you go to college? Why can't you get married, having like all these things? And
I suppose those things aren't something we grew up with.
They're not, no.
Like having a car at a young age, like all we knew was really, as you said last week,
if there
2
was
weeks
robbed,
ago, it was about getting a trade, and
exactly.
that's a good thing, you know.
Yeah.
But you got this mentality into your head, you know. Maybe I can do this.
There's more there for me,
Yeah.
like, and he drilled it into me like that. There's more. Don't be limiting yourself at all. He said, if you want to do these things, when you get out of here, go and do them. You have to waste enough time now in your teens and your 20s. Hit the ground running when you get out. When I was getting out, then it was anxiety because I was homeless.
Yeah.
And I rang the Simon community coming to the end of the treatment, and I was like, where the fuck am I supposed to go? You know. So I was very lucky. They were opening up a sober house, which I got into. I was out in Wilton, which is in south side, quiet area, like, suited me grand, away from my own area, you know, a lot of peers in addiction still that I had to stay away from. Feeling of being disloyal, you know, feeling of abandoning them, feeling of who do you think you are, James?
Yeah.
You know, who do you think you are? All these grandiose ideas, you know, getting notions, all this kind of negative, a lot of negativity in my head still. But always that kind of, the other part of me thinking, like, you go back up to that area and you fall back in with that group and you're dead.
It's gone.
Yeah, that's it.
It's gone.
And that fear was always there, and I stayed away in that area. And I stayed out in Wilton, like, went to the city centre. I was doing a bit of work on a C scheme. I was in the gym 6-7 days of the week. I was going to NA meetings twice a day, hanging around with new people from new areas, broadening my horizons. You know, the best, I suppose the best thing about NA and AA was the diversity of people in the groups.
Yeah.
You know, and even for just the social side of it alone, you know, but with that, I did all the suggested things, as they say. You know, I got
Exactly,
myself a sponsor, done the 12 steps. I was doing therapy as well through the Cork Lines, like what you were doing. You know, I still had a lot of stuff. You know, there's a lot of baggage there. Like,
at what point did education come into your life then? I remember when the two of us were doing the scheme together.
yeah,
I was doing the St. John's course, and I remember you mentioning you were going to go on and do a course in psychology or something. Was that?
yeah. I was after applying for 2 health and fitness courses in Knocknaheeny, level 5, and in Colossus Stefan Eva, and I didn't get them. And I was like, it's a very kind of cliche thing to do for somebody in early recovery to do health and fitness. Everybody does it. And I just thought, I'll do this too. But for whatever reason, I didn't get the courses. So I seen that as a sign. So then I was very unsure what I wanted to do. But I knew I wanted to do a trade or a degree or something. I had long-term plans, you know. But I was unsure. And I was very close to doing a trade. You know, I was making inquiries and the whole lot. But I met Gillian then, my wife now. And we started dating, and she had done a couple of courses. You know, she was working in a charity that support travellers at the time, and she said, "You could do the same course as I done. You'd be great at helping people in addiction or young people or whatever." And I thought, you can actually do a course to do that. You know what I mean? It was a very novel idea for me. So I said, "I will go for it." So I learned how to work a computer with a basic computer course with a tutor, an ATB tutor down in Defy in Blackpool. He's since passed. His name is Paul. He was a lovely man. But he learned how to use a computer. Then I went to the College of Commerce and I done the psychology and social studies for a year. I was the oldest in the class. You know, they were all after doing leave and stuff. But I loved it. You know, I started learning about psychology and sociology and social policy, and I began to look then at my own experiences and my neighbourhood kind of critically, and began to understand maybe why things are the way they are, and maybe the issues that we have that I had in my life are the issues that we have in our area. Maybe they're not all our fault, and maybe there's wider societal stuff happening that creates problems. And you know, I did make bad choices as you did, but there's also bigger structural issues at play here that limits the choices we have, or definitely impacts on our ability to have agency within all that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So I began to learn about all that. I enjoyed it. Then I went on to UCC and I done a 3-year bachelor's degree in community work.
Do you know, when you were learning about all these psychology courses and did that explain to you why you became addicted to drugs and alcohol, and did it help you to kind of deal with a lot of the emotional and stuff that you were dealing with, say your fear and the shame and guilt? Did doing those courses help you to understand? And do you know, when you understand something, then you don't say, do you know what, that's why I'm like that, so it's all right, and you just kind of you move forward with it then.
Like for example, in psychology there's Erik Erikson, his stages of psychosocial development, and this is not a psychology podcast, so I won't get into it, right? But basically, in the stage between adolescence and young early adulthood, is called role versus identity. So it's like a crisis where you have an identity, you're trying to find your role, like a teenage years. You know what I mean? Who am I? What's my purpose? This type of thing. But I had adopted an identity in my teens that it didn't fit with who I was. Do you know what I mean? Like I had adopted this identity of drug use or crime, negative behaviors that I didn't really want. I didn't really like that, and it wasn't really me. But I still had, and that was a crisis I had. You know. But like in psychology, we started learning about this. We said I could identify when the teacher was telling us about this. You know, I was thinking, fuck it. You know what? In my teens, through like I came into 15, 16. I didn't become an adult until I was 27, 28.
I can associate
I was stuck in that stage where I was unhappy with who I was, but it was an identity that I couldn't let go of. And when I was eventually let go of it and accept who I really was, I was able to move on to the next stage then, which is an adulthood, let's say. You know, and even in philosophy then I was reading about Nietzsche, and again, it's not an academic podcast, so I won't get into it, but it was about, you know, when you're born, you're born in, he calls it the camel phase, because we were born, and as we go through early life, we get humps on our backs, which is like traditions and beliefs and all this stuff, you know, And when I was looking back, I had all this stuff on my back that limited me. You know, like you can only have this kind of way of life. You can't go to college. You get rid of all that, and once you get rid of all that baggage, then you've endless opportunities because I don't have to take on board any of that shit. Just because I'm from up around here, I can do what I want. I can go to college. I can drive a lovely car. I can get married. So it's about psychology, sociology, philosophy. All that helps me to understand who I was.
Yeah.
And I still do.
And you were able to retain all that information as well, early recovery.
Yeah.
You know, to understand it, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. You know, because I was just so interested in it.
Yeah.
And I found college, you know, a brilliant process. You know, I enjoyed it. You know, the youth community work, especially the work experience aspect of it. You know, the confidence building all the time. I was working with people in early recovery, and it just felt so right for me to do that. You know, at the end of the 3 years degree, then I was after winning an award for to be an excellent scholar. So I got to study a master's then for free. So I was doing the criminology.
Yeah.
And it was 1 year full time. At this time, I was working in Cork Simon as well, and which was great. It was great to work in an organisation where I was the service user a few years beforehand. I remember one of the first couple of days on the job, I was in the shelter, and one of the service users come up to me and says, "Fuck it, James, I thought you were doing well." I says, "I'm working here, boy." He thought I was after coming homeless again.
Yeah.
And I bumped into my old key worker in the office one day as well, and it's like, oh, you know, something moments like that are just kind of remind you that you've come a long way, you know.
Yeah. That's empowering. Like,
yeah, it's fantastic. You know, it's just kind of flipping the script. You know what I mean? And the criminology masters then was, you know, brought up. The level of work I was doing then was brought up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So much support I got from the lecturers in there. I love the content of the class. You know, I got fantastic grades there. You know, I finished with first class honours. I remember my dissertation, I got 85%. And my lecturer, you know, sent me an email and he says, only 2 times in 10 years somebody's gotten over 80. And I was one.
Yeah.
I don't know, so I was so happy with that. Come to the end of that, got a job in Cork ETB where I am now. Youth services, you know, seems like a great fit for me as well, you know, to be working.
Isn't it amazing, right? The first course you done when you got out was an ATV course, and you end up working there, you know.
But you know what it is to me as well? For a lot of people coming from prison that's trying to go straight, or coming in recovery that's trying to go reintegrate, when they go into education or employment or something like that, or they're looking to do courses, they're nearly all ETB courses.
Yeah.
And so the plan now for me is going forward, I'm about to start a PhD in September, and it's looking at how people in recovery use education to reintegrate back into society. So let's say if I interviewed you, you tell me about how education was for you as a young person and how it was for you in recovery. What's working for you in the education system, what didn't work for you, and just about, I suppose, making Cork a better city for people in recovery, making the education system better to respond to people suffering traumas, and you know, for people in recovery, you know. So that's like, I come into recovery, we said a 5 or 6 year plan. Around January there, when I finished the masters, started the new job, it was like, right, I'd achieved everything I wanted to there. Do you know what I mean? I was married, I had a nice car, I was in a good job, I had a good team, I was educated, and it was like, what's the next plan? So then recently, when I got the scholarship to do the PhD, that's my next 6 year plan now. You know, become integrated into my employment, get my PhD, then I'd be looking at 40, coming into 40s then, and I'd come up with another plan. But it's all about having a goal, having a long-term goal, and having short-term goals along the way.
Yeah.
The podcast is another great new endeavour for us.
Yeah, definitely.
You know? And we want to help people. You know, when I was on the Tommy Tiernan show that time, so many people contacted me looking for help and support and everything, you know. So this is our way of helping them. It's our way of showing the community up here that we're positive people today. And you know, it's just, we've got great support from our local community.
Do you know, if there was somebody really out there struggling right now, you know, and they're trying to get into recovery,
Yeah.
What advice could you give him, James?
Just go for it.
Go for it.
Just go for it. Don't be humming and hawing about it. Don't get out of the fantasy mentality. The fantasy mentality is a pure characteristic of an addict. Oh, I'm going to do this, that, and the other, but never doing anything. Get rid of all that and just get real. Just go for it. Make the phone call. You know, we're contactable here if you don't know who to call. Contact the two Norries. We know all the people. We can help and support you in whatever way you can.
Yeah.
You know, so make the call. Just go for it. You can do it. You know, but you can't do it alone, and you need support.
What about people that are in recovery and they have that mentality that education's not for them, or you know what, I can't do that at all. You know,
education is not the be all and end all either. You know, as I said, I was very close to doing an apprenticeship, but have a long term goal. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're unhappy with your life, don't accept it. You know, don't settle for less than what you feel you're worth. Do you know what I mean? Don't settle for less than. Always strive for more. And if you have to take a hit in the short term to achieve a longer term goal, then go for it. But you know, achieve your potential. You know,
and if it is something that somebody wants to do, say for instance they want to do a course in a counselling course in drug addiction or psychology, what kind of routes would they need to take to?
If somebody wanted to get into that type of work, really, I'd say the first stop would be the College of Commerce, Colossia, Stefan Nefa, St. John's. You know, do maybe a level 4 or level 5. I remember around November, December there, I was actually February, March, I was actually teaching myself in the College of Commerce. I was teaching a beginner psychology class, and that was a great class. It was great for me to be a teacher in a college where I was a student a few years ago, which is another moment where you're gauging your progress, you know what I mean? But like there was 22 people in the class and they were learning the basics of psychology. There was no exams, there was nothing. They get a certificate of attendance. But it was a nice, comfortable class to learn the basics. And if it sparks an interest, then there's another course, a level 5, and then you can go on to university. But do little courses, do little tasters.
Yeah.
You know, try something new. What's the worst that can happen? You learn something new, you meet new people. What's the best that can happen? You find your niche and you get your career out of it. You know? So,
and I suppose what this podcast is about is to really show people that it's not the end of the world being an addict, you know, particularly an addict in recovery. Like we can really come back, like from where we've been in our own lives, to come back and to get into education and to get people into our lives that weren't in our lives when we were in addiction.
Like if you're in, and it doesn't even have to be addiction to me. Like if you're at home and you're struggling with your mental health, or your weight or whatever, and you're unhappy with it, it doesn't have to be like that. You know, you can get out of it and you can have a better life. But you most certainly will probably need support.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
And I know it's a hard thing to do for people to make the first step, you know, but hopefully people will find this helpful.
Yeah.
And if they want any numbers, they can look on our YouTube channel. You know, the links will be in the description. People want support for everything. And if the link isn't there, they can contact us directly.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose when someone's suffering from depression or mental health, you know, you really feel like that there's no hope.
Yeah.
You know, that these are from my own experiences with it. That you're no good, you know, you can't see any future, you know, and it's a really, really painful time, you know. But there are ways to get well. There are ways out there. Some ways will work for some people, other ways will work for other people. You know, it's just about finding and checking different ones. My route was the psychology. I went down psychotherapists, counselors, psychotherapists, and I got to a place then where it was, you know what? Now I'm after learning all the terminology around these things, how everything works, and why I am the way I am. But I still feel like shit.
Yeah.
I still feel like I'm bad. I still feel like I'm this and that, you know. And that's, I just go back to my the second part, that's where meditation worked for me.
Yeah.
You know, something else might work for somebody else, but it's about checking and finding the thing that works for you, isn't it?
Like I tried, as I said, I was in treatment. I done a lot of therapy up there. I came into NA and AA, stayed around there for a couple of years. But I felt like I kind of outgrew it, or what I wanted to move on. But really, I found my niche in education. And as soon as I met my wife, and I started the college route, that's where I felt I was at home. I was at home learning. I was at home in the job I'm in. And the team I'm on. It's just about finding your niche, but you have to do all other stuff in the meantime. And like, if somebody comes into recovery and they go to God and they're living happy, going to the church every day, more power to them.
Yeah.
If somebody's doing meditation and that's what works for them, great for them. Somebody's going to AA, brilliant for them. There's many ways to skin a cat, as they say.
Yeah.
And what works for you and me mightn't work for somebody else, and vice versa. But there is methods for support out there, and try them all. Do you know what I mean? Try them all until you find something that works for you.
Before we finish up there, James, I just want to say this before we finish, and I'm sure there's other people out there that'll agree with me. Like, seeing you on the Tommy Tiernan show, like, going on there, anything could happen, you know. But you encouraged people like me, and I'm sure a lot of other people, like, to get up and say, okay, this is what happened to me. This is where I am. I'm trying to do my best by everybody, you know. That took a lot of courage.
Yeah.
For you, and you're after inspiring an awful lot of people, you know, by going on to that show. And I know that you got a lot of feedback, and it was all positive, and a lot of people wanted help and guidance, and hopefully they're getting the help and guidance that they can from this, you know. And
like, before you finish there, going on that Tommy Tiernan show was a very nerve-wracking thing to do, because as everybody knows, that show is not scripted. He doesn't know who I am. He's no producer, and he's there. I don't know what question. It's my first time meeting him. He never met. He thought I was a GA player. That's what he said to me. So it could have gone anywhere. So with that, it's just about being yourself. And thankfully, people accepted me for who I was. And it's the genuineness that we're trying to bring to this podcast too. We're not trying to be anybody. We're not. We're just James and Timmy. We're trying to help people, and people have been very supportive. So thanks.
Right, James. Thanks very much. It was a fantastic story, and I'm sure everybody else out there will.
Yeah.
Thank you as well. So this is the end of this part of the podcast. So next week, from the next few weeks, we'll have Katrina Toomey, Dr. Sharon Lambert, and we'll have, who's our third guest? Sheila Conley. So we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Take care, lads.
This episode is sponsored by local entrepreneur Danny O'Donovan of QuickMinutes.com. Quick Minutes is a specialised meeting management application that streamlines the administrative process in running a meeting.